What's going on, everybody? We're back. Episode number 198 of the Club and Sub podcast. Maybe I will lead on my project manager, Danny Lags, over here to put something special together for number 200. But we're getting closer and closer. We're going to close it out here in 2024, 200 episodes, exciting stuff. If you like the show, drop a like, subscribe. We'd appreciate it. Tonight, we're talking UFC Edmonton. Before we get into that, got a couple house cleaning items here. First things first, sponsored by FightNumbers.com. Still bringing you great content every week. John Kelly's DFS projections. I am telling you, literally the best in the business. They've also got bets from Pepe and Ozzy, and I've seen some bangers that they have this week. They got a Discord you can use. They have the trends predicting tool. They have the live odds screens, giving you live odds in real time, domestic and international. It's great stuff. For 30% off your first month, use the promo code CLUB, CLUB. Now, let's break down last week real quick. Fucking tilting card. Let me tell you guys. I ended up for the card down 1.4 units. Got the card started off getting kicked right in the teeth. Had 2 units on Carlos Leal, plus 200. Looked like minus 200.
Yeah, that was awful.
Very, very good times. So that was fun. Yeah. Lost that for 2 units. I had 2.6 units on Abus Magomedov to win 2. I don't even know how I feel about this in retrospect, to be honest, because, I mean, obviously big grappling edge, so probably some value on it, but also I think he gets hurt a fair amount in that fight, you know, and obviously he gassed out again. So all that talk about him maybe... Yeah, I mean, to Kagabe's point, the Leal decision is like the worst. And then there's been some bad decisions this year, but it's about the worst I can remember this year, especially at 30-27, which was just absolutely out there. I also had Mateusz Rebecki for 2 units at plus 240. That was great. Sadly, I had Rebecki round 1 KO for 0.1 units at plus 1900. Round 2 plus 2400. His eye blew up, and I was like, fuck yes, going to cash the whole bag here. No such luck. And that went to a split. And one judge did score round 3, a round where Miktabek Orobai almost died, literally, did score that round for him. So it was quite interesting. It was quite interesting, quite an interesting week. I also had Armin Petrosian large, plus 150. And that brings us to our next segment here. I told Lags if Armin lost, I would do a shot. Lags said if we made another shot bet separate to that, if Armin didn't land more significant strikes, I'd have to do a shot. But if he did, he would have to. He did outland Shara by 12 significant strikes. So I was right about that. I got to say, though, Lex, I say it every fucking week, and I keep doing it like once to twice a month, where it's like I'm betting these striking fights, and I'm betting a small dog at a hardware disadvantage. I feel like you just can't do it, man. Even if they're the more skilled striker, like hardware is just makes such a big difference, right?
And the other thing I'll add on top of that, too, even in a like, and we'll get on top of some of these fights today on this card, but like even with like heavy striking fights that go the distance, it's mostly just striking and it's a slight dog you're playing. If you don't think there's a ton of value there, I'm fine passing it because, you know, it's more often than not mainly a coin flip type of fight.
Yeah, you're right. And honestly, I think I consistently underestimate the way judges score eye-catching strikes versus a heavy volume of strikes. So, yeah, it's something I'll gonna try to fix going forward. What can you do, though? But we do have a shot to take. I do have some fireball right here.
Yes. I will finish my results first before we do that.
Okay, yeah.
So,
go ahead.
So I finished up 1.15 units. So I as well had a unit on Rebecki at plus 250, cashed nicely. I had a unit on Rob Whitaker, which, I mean, knew the early danger of Chimaev, but, I mean, brutal face crank early there is what it is. I had Bruno Silva no scorecards, which was a push there, plus 165. He just looked absolutely washed. Kind of was nice that I played, no scorecards versus Moneyline. I figured he had most of the finishing upside, and if it went the distance, I didn't think he was going to likely anyways. Had the goes the distance in Ankalaev Rakic, minus 160. Pretty sweat-free there. And then I had 1.35 units on the Jeff Neal RDA fight to go the distance, which I mean, we talked about a little bit, after the fights. RDA kind of seemed like he was maybe coming in a little injured, but
yeah, so I had that too.
Nonetheless,
I didn't leave that. So like it didn't. I mean, honestly, the 90 seconds we saw didn't look great for it. Like Neal just looked way faster. But also, like rewatching the replay, I'm like, I mean, we see non-contact injuries all the time, but usually you can identify when it happened. And I was just like, did he just show up with a torn ACL? I don't know. It was a little weird.
Yep.
It was a
tough.
little weird.
Yep.
Josh talking about my
Nice
sensitive
profit.
palate. Let me tell you this. I've been prepping for this for about an hour and a half. I took my dad for the next month is home by himself because my mom is staying with my brother, helping him with his new baby. So I took him out to dinner tonight. Me and the old man were drinking some of the honey jack. So I think I'm perfectly coded here for the Fireball. So I don't have a shot glass with me right now, so I'm just going to take a big swig of it. But cheers.
Cheers.
Woo! Gotta love that. Tasted almost like eggnog. I don't know why.
Oh.
I don't know. It was a very weird sensation I just got. Almost like a pregnant woman who's like just tasting things that are different than what they normally taste.
Jeez.
Anyway, let's hop in
All
here.
right.
UFC Edmonton, kind of a pretty wonky card, to be honest. I like it. I've got a couple bets on it. I'll probably have a couple more. I'll bet a bunch of props before all said and done. I've kind of just been monitoring lines, waiting for domestics to get stuff. But it's cool. What do you think of the card, Lags? I mean, it's a lot of action fights on it.
Yeah, a lot of action fights on it, but I'll be honest, I'm going to be pretty hands off in terms of a betting perspective. Like right now, I only have one bet, maybe looking to add another 2 to 3, but pretty light card for me personally. Which I mean, that's how I typically like to play.
That's how you roll. Let's jump in.
Yep.
I'll throw it to you first. First fight of the night. Jack Shore coming back off of.
Don't believe it's the first fight anymore.
I'm on Tapology right now. Are you seeing something different?
Oh, is it? Oh, I guess I'm on ESPN. I guess maybe they didn't update that. I guess Tapology is probably more up to date there.
We're going by Tapology. That's what we're doing.
Go for it. Yep, you're good. Go for it.
Jack Shore coming off a fight where he literally looked like he'd been shot in the leg when they stopped the fight against Joe Anderson Brito. It was a pretty fun fight, though. He's taking on Yusuf Zalal, who since returning to the UFC has been a buzzsaw. Finished Billy Quarantillo, finished Jarno Aarons. Current price, Zalal, big fave here. He is not decent sized fave. He's minus 250 to come back on Shore, plus 210. What do you think, Danny? Value on Shore?
I want to say yes, but I mean, I was a guy, you as well, probably, that bet Billy Q against Zalal. I mean, Zalal's not going to say he looks, reinvigorated or anything like that, but I mean, the guy's fast, good athlete. I think in this matchup in particular, I think he's the better striker. And in terms of the grappling, I just don't think that Shore's presenting a ton of massive threats in terms of holding him down or finishing him on the mat. I think Zalal is a decent-sized favorite, is probably fine.
Yeah, I will have a bet on Jack Shore. It is going to be small, but I don't really see a lot of reasons that Zalal should be minus 250. Like 2 years ago, what would this price be? I mean, Zalal was minus 120 against the Mont Blackshear in his last fight in the UFC on his first go round. Jack Shore was like minus 400 to Makwan Amirkhani. Like he was big juice against everybody, minus 200 against Ricky Simone. I have some concerns about, a Shore up at featherweight because I still don't really know how his physicality is going to hold up there. But like Zalal used to fight at bantamweight too. So it's not like he's fighting Brito again. And honestly, despite how that fight ended, I thought he held up okay against Brito. Like Brito was whooping his ass, or not whooping his ass. He was bullying him. But like in striking exchanges, Shore looked pretty clean in there. He was landing his own stuff. He's a tough guy. I think of the two, Shore is much more likely to consolidate like long protracted positions at top time just because I think he can get to a body triangle easy. I mean, Zalal does it too. I just think he's going to have a hard time like controlling Shore with it. But yeah, I mean, it's a close fight. I lean Zalal just on the athleticism and, I think he's more durable than Shore is. But I do think it should be competitive. And as such, I kind of lean Shore here. I'll eventually have a play on him. And yeah, I mean, Rich just said it, but like Zalal's going from being cut to beating Jarno Aaron. Like, I made this point earlier in the week, but like, would Jack Shore have been more or less likely to handle Billy Q and Jarno Aaron similarly? Like, I think he would handle them pretty similarly, personally. Like, I don't think that would look that different, honestly. So, I like Shore. We'll see what happens. Moving on, I'll keep it with you, Lags. What a fight to talk about. Jamie Lynn Horth, Ivana Petrovic, minus 220, Jamie Lynn Hort. The comeback on Petrovic, plus 180. What are your thoughts?
I'll be honest, a lot of people don't want to talk about this fight maybe because, it's a low-level women's MMA fight. But to be honest with you, I mean, I think the line's fine where it's at. Like, I feel like people are taking unwarranted dog shots here maybe on Petrovic. Like, to me, she's not a great striker, not a great wrestler either. I think in both of those areas, I think Horth is much better. I think she's a much better striker. I think in terms of the wrestling, I think she's more likely to get top time if she was to land takedowns. But I think she's just much better in the clinch. I think she can hold her own in there. I think her as a big favorite makes sense to me.
Not moving on. Sorry, I have to talk about this too.
You might as well move on, John. But,
I don't really know if it makes sense, but
all right,
I do rate Petrovic quite low. I mean, the thing is, I don't think Horth is very good on bottom, so it's one of those things where if Petrovic can get her game going, I think she can win this fight because obviously she is a wrestle first fighter. The problem for me, to your point, is just physicality. That is the big issue. And if she struggled with the physicality of Luana Carolina, and I think Horth's a bit more physical than her. I think she's higher output. I think she's got better cardio. And so I kind of view it as Petrovic really needs to get to the mat quick because I think if she gets stuck in the clinch with Horth in the manner that she did with Carolina, she's just probably not going to get out of there and get beaten up. And I mean, in general, it's a pretty low-level fight, and I'm trying to avoid betting against hardware, as I mentioned. But I leaned to Petrovic at the line. It's like the younger female grappler against. I mean, Horth doesn't really have any skills. She's just a hoss. But I do think the hoss is going to win. I
was just going to say she's not very skilled, but she's just big, physical, which is probably enough here.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, Chad Heler, he's taking on Cody Gibson. Current price, Gibson minus 187. Come back on Chad plus 162. I think the price is fine. I played Gibson at minus 140, minus 150 range, I think. I played him a few times last week. But, I mean, I wouldn't lay minus 185, I don't think. It's kind of a big number. I do think he's a lot better than Chad is. He's got a lot of scope to look like a huge favorite here. In particular, I think he's got a large grappling edge, and Chad is really quite hapless when he gets put on the mat and pretty easy to take down. But, I mean, the striking could be competitive. Gibson's high volume, but he's very hittable. He's very leg kickable. And Chad, for a 37-year-old with no knees, he hits pretty hard, honestly. Chad is a guy that I've always tried to fade, but he's a scrapper, man. He's a guy who's going to give you what he can give you. I just think in this fight, the Gibson grappling upside is large enough. He's kind of got to be minus 200. I also think to look at Gibson sub in the plus 500-ish range is not bad either. I mean, and Heler's been sub 6 times, and I kind of think if the grappling goes the route the way I think it's going to go, it's probably pretty big value. What are your thoughts?
No, I see it similar. If I would have played it around that minus 140, minus 150, I think that's a great line. But yeah, current price, I'm just not too interested. I mean, the only other points I would add really that he's got a near 7-inch reach advantage on the feet, much taller, longer. I think he's got more volume here as well against Chad. So, yeah, completely agree with you.
Moving on, we have Serhi Cidd taking on Garrett Armfield. Current price, Cidd minus 140, comeback on Armfield plus 120. It's an interesting one because I know a lot of people that like the Cidd side, but I've seen a lot of bets on the Armfield side. I'm curious, what do you think here?
Again, this is one to me, like we were talking about right before we started the pod. I kind of think that it's going to be a close fight. So I would lean to the Armfield side. I think he could probably land the big shots on the feet. The length of Cidd kind of does, give me some pause here. I think that could, deter Garrett for sure coming into the pocket. But I think it's just a close fight that probably goes the distance. And I would favor Garrett in terms of the finishing upside.
Yeah, so this kind of goes to what I was talking about not fading hardware here. Because in my mind, you can see why you'd like Cidd. Higher output. I think he's obviously younger. I think he's got, actually, I don't know if he's younger. They're about the same age, I think. He's got a bit more, I just think he's got a bit more talent, bit better of an athlete, bit faster. He's taller, longer, to your point. Very high output, very good cardio. And obviously, Armfield's cardio isn't great. Conversely, though, Armfield, he does a pretty good job of working into the pocket. He's a decent counter boxer. He will throw combinations inside with you. He hits very, very hard. I kind of think the early portion of this fight is going to be pretty tough for CD because this guy, it's weird because I see why people like him as a prospect. I absolutely see it, but he also is very easy to hit, and I really just don't like the way he reacts to shots. It's not even just the Tavares fight, but like I found a couple fights regionally where he's getting kind of stung by guys who don't really hit that hard. He's also got some wrestling issues, like Armfield getting him down and getting on top for a while wouldn't really shock me. And I think Armfield hits a lot harder and is more durable. So, which would be like, why don't you bet Armfield plus 120? He's obviously a more experienced fighter. It's just a cardio, man. Like, if I may look to like Armfield, like 1-2, stuff like that. But I feel like if he doesn't get a finish early here, he's going to probably get pumped on the back end of the fight. I shouldn't say early, like say like first 8 or 9 minutes. Because like, he held up pretty well at pace against Katona in round 2. Same thing with Heastand. But I mean, he looked dire in round 3 against both Katona and Heastand. Obviously looked dire against Onama, but I give him, a break for that because it was like 3 days notice or whatever. But I think it's a tough fight for CD, but I do think if he can avoid taking too much damage, he should take over the fight. It just feels like a fight where there's a lot of high uncertainty here. Obviously, CD can exploit the cardio aspect of Armfield, and Armfield, I think, can stand up in pocket exchanges better than CD, and his durability will hold up better. I just don't really want to take. I'm not passionate about taking a pre-fight side here, I'll say. I will say the market is moving towards Armfield. We have seen some money come in on Armfield today. He's down from about plus 150 earlier this week to about plus 120. If that tickles your fancy, market analysis. But I'm good to pass this one.
Yep.
Moving on, we got Romanov Alexander taking on Rodrigo Nascimento. Speaking of, we got a little two-way action here. Current price, Nascimento minus 117. Comeback on Romanov minus 103. Was all one-way action on Romanov for a while. Seeing some buyback on the Nascimento side today. Honestly, my initial thoughts were like, I'm going to bet Romanov because Nascimento hasn't looked great on bottom. It's probably a much easier fight for Romanov. But I mean, you talk about cardio. My God, this guy's a fucking slob, man. Like, it's really like if he doesn't get him down and control him for like 2 full rounds and survive round 3, he's pretty fucked. Like, he outstruck Blagoy, but Blagoy is old. He could outstrike him, I guess, similarly, but I just trust Nascimento's. I trust his volume a lot more. I trust his power on the feet a lot more. I trust his cardio a lot more. And I think conversely too, if Nascimento gets on top of Romanov, he can do damage there too. So, yeah, Romanov's got a fair amount of upside in the form of takedowns and control, but he's got a ton of downside in the fact that he's kind of flaky, has horrible cardio, and is out of shape against a pretty good heavyweight. So I don't know. It just, again, feels like a very high uncertainty fight for me. Like, am I shocked if you tell me that Romanov comes out here and top times him for the whole fight? Not really. Am I shocked if he just gets abused and or is winning and gasses out and gets finished? No, not really. So I'm good passing it. I kind of lean the Nascimento side, to be honest. What do you think, Lex?
So I'm complete on the opposite with you. Like, in terms of like you liking Romanov, I like Nascimento a good bit, and
I said I like Nascimento.
Well, I know, but I guess starting off your breakdown.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm more passionate on the Nascimento side. I'm just debating on whether or not I want to play it, just because I just feel like there is such a small window for Romanov that, like him, like to your point, him landing takedowns and winning 2 rounds, to me, that's just not on my bingo card. You know what I mean? To me, he's got to get that finish in the first round. Like Blagoy, old, slow, and that's my issue a bit with Nascimento too. Like his cardio did not look good last time against Lewis, and in general, his cardio is not great. So it's not like he's going to have a huge advantage. I mean, he's going to have an advantage for sure over Romanov. But yeah, I mean, to me, around a pick'em, it doesn't make a ton of sense with the guy striking. I think Nascimento hits way harder. Again, much better striker and has better cardio too as well.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So you did bet Nascimento, you said?
No, I'm just debating on whether or not to play him, to be honest with you. But it's going to be a small bet. It'd only be a unit. Yep, go ahead.
Taking on Victor Henry. Current price, a lot of market movement today all over the place. I was actually looking at Jordane earlier in the week, and now he's at minus 138. The comeback on Henry's plus 118. Not sure I'm as enthused at this price. I guess since I just started, I will continue with this. I don't know. I mean, I think the move down to 135 is probably good for Jordane. He's always been like
he looks shredded,
kind of a weenie at 45, or 35,
Yeah.
45, where and he was a very fast 45er, so I feel like his speed should translate fairly well to 35. Like he probably won't be a super fast 35er, but I think he should be able to still be quick, compared to a lot of guys in that division. He maybe won't get abused as much, but in terms of this fight, Victor Henry, yeah, he brings a lot of volume. He brings a ton of volume. But the two things that have really plagued Charles Jordane, in my opinion, are grappling and power. I mean, you've seen it. His durability has kind of been a little shaky lately. I don't think Henry has like any power. Now, maybe him coming down to 35 affects his chin, but like I said, I think he should have always been here, so I'm kind of skeptical on that. And in terms of the grappling, like Henry's a black belt, but he's not much of a wrestler. I don't really think he's the kind of guy with much of a top game to hold Jordane down. So the big question for me in this fight is, well, can Jordane hold up against the volume? But we've seen Jordane fight high volume before. He landed like 170 significant strikes against Andre Ewell, landed similar numbers against Shane Burgos. Like the guy can throw in volume. Now, he may not be as crafty with it as Victor Henry is, but he's a bit longer. And I mean, he hits a lot harder, in my opinion. And I think the power can deter some of what Henry's doing. On top of which, he's just, in the aggregate, I would rate the level of competition Charles Jordane has fought considerably higher than what I rate Victor Henry's level of competition. He's also 28 compared to Victor Henry, who is 37 and 30 fights into his career. That usually favors the younger fighter pretty dramatically. I think of the two, Jordane's a lot more likely to have big moments, win rounds by big moments, or finish on the feet. So, yeah, I mean, I think Jordane out around minus 150 makes sense. What do you think?
So, again, leaning the other way here. Not going to play Victor Henry here, though. I ultimately just think it's probably a close fight. And to your point, I think it comes down to the grappling. And while I do think, Henry's a decent grappler, I don't think he's going to have any meaningful top time here against Jordane. But in terms of the striking, I think he can outpace him, and I think he can outwork him. I think he's got slightly better cardio as well. I think it's just ultimately going to be a close fight where Jordane doesn't find a finish.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on, we have great fight here. Jasudavicius taking on Ariane Lipsky. Current price, Jasudavicius minus 220. Comeback on Lipsky plus 190. What are your thoughts here, lads? Any play here?
Now I'll be quick and shorter. I think the steam was warranted on the Jasmine side. I think her body lock takedowns can be super successful here against Ariane, and I think she can ground her, land takedowns, pretty often here, and potentially even find a finish on the mat. I think Jasmine Juice is fine.
You think the minus 220 is fine? When you say it's fine, do you think it's fine for a bet, or you think it's like this is appropriately lined?
No, I would say that's appropriately lined, because if she is stuck on the feet, I mean, Lipsky De Silva now has a much better striking advantage.
Yeah. We're not calling her De Silva legs. I just want to be upfront. That's not happening.
But she's also no longer the queen of violence either.
Is that true? Did she get rid of that nickname?
No, but we just haven't seen it. I mean, she's just very lackluster in there.
I'll be honest. So, I played the early Jasmine number at minus 160. See, I might cash out most of it, though, because the thing is, So, I think she should own here. I'm actually curious. What do you think of the under? Because I think the under is kind of an interesting look in this fight because it feels very binary. Doesn't go the distance, plus 190. That seems like
a solid bet. Yep.
Yeah, that's good. I think if Jasmine does what we think is going to happen, she's going to get on top and absolutely smash,
Yeah, which on top of that, what is Jasmine KO? Because I think a TKO on the mat's pretty live.
That's an interesting. Jasmine IT. Oh, her ITD is terrible.
Her KO's 9
750. Oh wow, yeah, 900's out there too. That's not bad.
I think that's spicy. Maybe a round 2 KO, round 3 KO.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So I think if Jasmine gets on top, she is going to absolutely fucking wreck Ariane Lipsky. Like, I know Lipsky's made some improvements on bottom, but like, she's really not good there, and Jasmine is very, very good there. It's kind of funny because obviously Karine Silva is a good submission grappler, but I think the market rates her top game better than Jasmine's, and I have mixed feelings. Like, she's a way better submission grappler than Jasmine is, but I think Jasmine's a lot more positionally functional, kind of similar to Montana De La Rosa, who absolutely mauled her. And so, yeah, I mean, if Jasmine can get those takedowns, I think she mugs her here. The problem for me is, man, like, you look at this woman's standing defense, it's like 45% at distance. She closes distance horribly, like very, very plotty. Her takedowns are all very upper body, and that's like the one area where Lipsky actually has some defensive grappling competency. On top of which, like, while she's trying to close distance, the speed and precision of Lipsky is just significantly better than Jasmine's, you know, and she hits significantly harder on the feet. So, like, I can picture this being a fight where Lipsky is wobbling her all over the cage, you know, and it turns into the Casey O'Neill fight. At the same time, I do think Jasmine's a lot better than Casey O'Neill as a grappler. I think Jasmine minus 200 range is probably right. I don't know. I just get concerned, man. I watch some of Jasmine's fights, and I'm like, man, if Lipsky bites down with her, I don't know that Jasmine's going to be able to bully her backwards. So we'll see. I mean, Jasmine should win. I think I like goes the distance, though, better, honestly, than any kind of Jasmine juice. So
you mean doesn't go? But
doesn't go. Yeah, sorry. Definitely not good.
Yep.
Definitely did not like this distance.
Yeah.
Moving on. Amin Zahabi, Pedro Munoz. Weird fight here. Also, kind of strange line. Zahabi minus 120. Comeback on Pedro plus 100. I'm torn. I mean, part of me wants to bet Pedro because it is a large step down in competition here. Amin Zahabi, obviously an extremely low volume fighter. And he's coming off 4 wins in a row. He has all the hype in this fight as Pedro's on a bit of a losing streak. One is a plus 600 favorite in his last fight against Javid Basharat. Personally, I thought Javid gave that fight away. I thought he fought like a moron and gassed himself out trying to chase grappling he didn't need to chase. But now he's taking on Pedro Munoz, and Munoz does a lot of things, well, that, you know, Zahabi is bad at. You know, he goes forward, a lot of volume, a lot of calf kicks, and Zahabi does seem like he might be a bit vulnerable to them. Super durable, great anti-grappler. Like, Zahabi's not going to be able to really have any grappling success. I think if either of them ended up on top, it would probably be Pedro. And obviously, he's fought the way better level of competition. The problem for me is Zahabi, in some respects, does fit the kind of archetype Pedro's had trouble with. You know, guys who just don't stand in front of him. I mean, the truth is, throughout Pedro's career, if you're the kind of guy that backs straight up or will stand in the pocket with him, he will go to war with you. He will take your shots and give it back harder. But just about every guy that's been able to pivot off and stay mobile, he's had a lot of issues with. And that's literally all Zahabi does. So I can see kind of why the line has trended towards Zahabi. I do still think, though, at the same time, of the two, I think Munoz is a lot more likely to finish this fight. I also think he's a lot more likely to have big round swinging moments. And I think, you know, the calf kicks have the potential to limit a lot of Zahabi's durability. Like, honestly, if it was 2 years ago, I'd bet him. My biggest concern with Munoz is he's 38 years old. You know, he is definitely slowing down. I thought he looked a lot more tepid against Phillips in his last fight. Now, obviously, Phillips, despite his performance 2 weeks ago, Phillips is considerably better than Zahabi is. But that fight did kind of concern me because, like, I don't know if you bet him. I bet Pedro, though. And I expected him to push forward and push a very, very heavy pace. And it just wasn't really there, honestly. Look, at the end of the day, I lean the Munoz side at the money line. I haven't decided if I'll bet him or not. I do have some concerns about where he is in his career and about him dealing with the movement of Zahabi. But I do think it's the kind of fight where you almost have to favor Pedro with the finishing upside, the experience and strength of competition upside. Like Zahabi's if Zahabi was higher volume, you know, I'd be a lot less like torn about it, but he is very low volume. So it's like he doesn't really, I'm not sure he's going to punish Pedro's plottiness. Like, what do you think?
This seems like prime, like Weasel candidate. Amin Zahabi. Like, to your point exactly, footwork, speed. Like, I think he's just going to be moving around too quick for Pedro. Like, and this isn't why I'm not like tempted on the Pedro side, but like I bet Pedro against Frankie Edgar a long time ago. And I mean, you even saw the speed of Frankie even give him issues.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And that was like a long time ago against Frankie's corpse.
I know. So it's like, no, I'm out on Pedro. Complete pass.
All right.
Yep.
Fair enough. Well, I'm going to keep it with you here for quite a fight here. Actually, I'm going to start off by saying some of you who have been with us for years might be expecting me to bet Trevin Giles here at plus 210. However, I have sold all my Trevin Giles stocks at this point.
They're down.
I am out. I am done donating. If he wins, I will be happy for him. I am an infamous backer of Trevin Giles in spots where he should be valued.
John, if he wins and you don't have money on him, are you going to buy a T-shirt? If he has any kind of merch?
No, he still owes me. If I don't have money on him, fuck that. You know.
Fair.
But the current price on this fight minus 250. The comeback on Giles plus 210. What do you think, Lags?
So starting off the first leg of my parlay, I have the fight doesn't go the distance here, minus 225 on FanDuel. Or not FanDuel, sorry, DraftKings. I think that's great. I mean, obviously, Mallet, early finisher, and Giles, all 6 of his losses by finish. I mean, I think this is just prime for Giles to get served earlier, to be honest. On the feet, I think the calf kicks are going to be big for Mallet. Yeah. I think he's going to land something hard and probably finish Giles early.
Yeah, so that's kind of my issue because honestly, a couple things. First of all, and, I'm going to get into this in another fight that I did bet where it's like a little disconcerting that I'm doing this. But like, I really hate betting on someone right after they lose their hype or betting against them because a lot of times you're trying to double down on what something the market just caught and now the market's adjusted appropriately. It's not going to keep me off it, but it does, it is a concern of mine. And in Mallet's case, I mean, the guy was just a huge favor against Neil Magny. Obviously, he collapsed down the stretch of that fight. I don't see any similarities between Trevin Giles and Neil Magny, though. That's kind of the issue for me. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Giles can have some boxing success. He's pretty quick. He's got a good jab. He's got decent pop. But I don't think he's likely to have a ton of wrestling success in this fight. I think when I look at the striking, even though I think Giles could have some moments here, the speed gap is very large and the power gap is I don't want to say the power gap is large. I think Mallet has more power though. And when you factor in the fact that Giles just can't take a punch, I mean, Giles at this point, I'm literally not making this up, is getting knocked down at about the rate Francis Ngannou knocks down opponents from distance strikes at this point in his career. So that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's absurdly high.
I would believe it. Listen, if you said that, John, I'd believe it.
So like where I'm at is like, yes, Giles can win. Skill for skill, he's not like horribly outclassed here, but he's never horribly outclassed against anybody he fights. Like he is a talented fighter. The problem is he's got terrible fight IQ and he just can't take a shot. And so when evaluating it, I do think Mallet has more grappling upside. I think he is far more likely to land like critical shots in this fight. Like I think it is more likely than not that Mallet is going to finish this fight. Yeah. That is like my own personal view. And is there some scope for another Mallet collapse on the back end of this fight? There is. I also don't think Giles is going to force him to work nearly as hard as Neil Magny did, though. And that's kind of my problem. I think minus 250 is fine. Honestly, I do. I have no interest in a play here. I actually like, is that minus 225 still there? I actually kind of like that a lot.
Yep,
I'm going to take a look at that. That is, because I think it should be about like minus 350-ish to end inside the distance here. So that's not bad.
We'll get to the second leg of the parlay later, but I think where that's the leg sitting at, I think that could be, to your point there, probably minus 300, minus maybe 350. We'll get to it later, though.
All right, well, coming up, we got dog shelter of the week here. Marc-Andre Barriault taking on Dustin Stoltzfus. Current price, Barriault minus 200. The comeback on Stoltzfus plus 170. I'm not going to lay Barriault minus 200. I mean, obviously, at this point, the Barriault dynamic is fairly clear where it's like you want to try to get in on him after a slow start. But if it got like it was trending down for a bit this week, like it hit minus 175, and if it had gotten to minus 150, I'd have played him. I don't know. I guess I see the reason some of the market likes the Stoltzfus side. Obviously, Barriault does start slow. Stoltzfus, he's like a lunch pail fighter, like good blue collar fighter, decent grappler, decent hands, decent kicks. He's solid. He's solid at everything. The thing is, for me, he's not very high output. He's a bit hittable. Personally, I think he's a bit fragile when I watch him fight. I think his gas, I don't want to say it's bad, but I don't think it's great either. Like he's slowed down in a couple fights at like pretty
I don't think
nothing
it's
paces.
good.
Yeah, that's like the Dwight Grant fight. Nothing happened, and he was tired.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the GM3 fight got tired, but a little bit obviously more happened in the Grant fight, like you had mentioned.
Yeah, the Grant fight. Also, the Vieira fight. Not a lot happened until the third round, and he was sucking wind. So, like, I just think he's a guy. Yeah, he beat Puna, and he had like a great game plan in that fight. To his credit, a lot of body kicks, mixed in the wrestling well, and he kind of got Puna to quit. But I just think in the aggregate, he's not going to ever really get really far out ahead of guys. And then you have a guy like Barriault too. I know Fluffy ran him over, but I mean, Fluffy had to work really hard to run him over. It took 8 takedowns before he subbed him. I think there is some misconceptions about the grappling dynamic here. Like, I think Stoltzfus can get takedowns. I do not think he's going to hold Barriault down. I'd be surprised at it. And like, if Barriault's getting up against the fence, they're probably ending up in the clinch, which is probably a nightmare for Stoltzfus. I just look at it, and yeah, I mean, Barriault's got his flaws. The guy, he is hittable. He's very slow and very plodding, but he just keeps coming, and he's very durable, and he's got decent power. I mean, this is the epitome of like hardware gap is gigantic, in my opinion. Like the physical intangibles massively favor Barriault in this fight. Yes, could Stoltzfus fight a perfect fight, outpoint him to a decision? Yeah, I think he could. I don't think he's much less, he might not be less skilled than Barriault at all, but I think the pace that Barriault brings is going to break him at a very, very high clip here. I just think Stoltzfus, maybe he starts well, but I think he's going to have a hard time keeping up with it. And as Barriault starts to be able to get to the clinch easier, I think it goes downhill. I think Barriault breaks him, probably finishes him on the back end. What do you think?
Completely agree with you. Do we want to say Stoltz is the mush of the week? It's feeling that way.
I can't say that when Giles is minus 200. That's fair. That's a bit too extreme. Or Barriault's minus 200.
I know. But no, I see the fight completely similar. I think the pace, the pressure, Marc-Andre Barriault, much better cardio as well here than Stoltzfus. I think it's a great fight for him.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on, Kyle Machado, Brenson Ribeiro. Should be a banger for as long as it lasts. Current price, Machado minus 156. Comeback on Ribeiro plus 136. What do you think?
Honestly, I was eyeing some, to your point there, I was eyeing some under 2.5, minus 160. I think it's decent line here because to me, both guys are super hittable and Ribeiro's got like no durability at all. And now I just think it's probably a car crash early. I mean, Ribeiro is just pretty much a gassy power striker. I mean, he doesn't have much to his game, in my opinion. I don't think he's long for the UFC. I think he loses here, probably gets cut. I think Machado probably finds a finish here. Not that I think highly of him either, but.
Vera asked, is Mab okay? He just got KO'd. I mean, it's possible he's not. I mean, that would be some scope for Stoltzfus, but I mean, it's impossible to know, so.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago, though. Would be the only concern.
Yeah. But in terms of this fight, if it was at heavyweight, I would lay it on Machado at this price. He obviously looks in much better shape coming down to light heavyweight, and I'm sure he is to make 205, but I just always get nervous about these kind of weight cuts and these kind of moves down, and especially with Ribeiro being like very tall, very long, and like pretty fast for the division while he's fresh. I think there will be opportunities for Ribeiro to get his offense off on Machado, to potentially have some grappling success early on Machado. The big issue for me is, again, like I think the hardware is very, very much on Machado's side here. He seems pretty durable to me. He's got okay power. Ribeiro has literally no durability. The guy he's a glass cannon. He's got good offensive skills, but he's a total glass cannon, And like on top of that, if Ribeiro tries to shoot here and ends up on bottom, he's going to be in big trouble because the dude just can't get off his back. Like it's really bad. So I don't know. I have some concerns that I think Ribeiro is the more skilled fighter, to be honest. I just don't. with the kind of durability issues he has, I would want something a lot longer than plus 130, than take to get in there. I just feel like we know what Ribeiro's going to do. He's going to walk into the fire here. And I think Machado wins that fight more often than not. I mean, the smartest thing Ribeiro could do is come out grappling hard. And I think he could have success doing that. But again, if he doesn't sub early, I don't think his cardio can sustain that. Yeah. So,
yeah.
But like Machado, like Ribeiro round one stuff and Machado live seems like the way to play this, honestly.
Yep.
Moving on. What a fight. Jonathan Diniz taking on Derek Lewis. Current price on Diniz minus 175. Comeback on Lewis plus 150. I don't know. Part of me wants to bet the Lewis side here. I am a bit hesitant to do so just because I don't think he's looked. I mean, look, did Derek Lewis ever really look good? No. But I think he's looked exceptionally poor lately. Even I know he just knocked out Nascimento, but the guy got mounted in each of the first 2 rounds of that fight. He looked pretty bad until he killed him, So
yep.
I feel like he is certainly going downhill. But obviously it's a big step down in competition here. The thing is, Diniz seems like a decent prospect. He's got good hands. He's got decent power. He's got really good leg kicks. And as we know, Derek Lewis does not like leg kicks. I mean, the common refrain I've heard about Lewis this week is he's probably got grappling upside. But, I mean, this guy, Derek Lewis, can't wrestle like Carl Williams. Now, do I think he could push Diniz into the clinch and take him down and maybe smash him there? I do. But I think if that's the game plan, he's going to gas out pretty quickly in this fight and likely get finished. I just don't think it's a game plan he can sustain. So I think about the fight, and I mean, Lewis might be getting underrated a bit because I do think Diniz is a bit hittable, and obviously Lewis still packs a ton of power in his shots. But, I mean, he's so much older than Diniz is. The leg kicks are like a big, big deal here. I think if Diniz can avoid getting KO'd, he should beat him up pretty comprehensively, to be honest. I don't know. Plus 150 doesn't really do it for me. It's just really hard to get on board with like Derek Lewis at this point against the guy who's hits hard with precision and kicks legs. I just can't really get there. So yeah, I mean, I lean Lewis at the number, but I understand line why. I understand why it is where it is. I think all of the uncertainty in this fight is really on the Lewis side, and I think the floor that Lewis could potentially have here is very low. What do you think?
Yeah. No, completely agree with that endpoint there. The floor for Lewis here, I feel like is very, very low. But I feel like, I think it's exactly how it's going to play out too. I think Diniz is going to be able to keep distance from Lewis, chop that leg up, and potentially find a finisher. There's not much to buy into the Derek Lewis stocks anymore, to be honest with you. I don't.
Yeah, it's like if you're wrong, if we're wrong and Lewis knocks him out, who cares? Like, I will not be upset at myself if Derek Lewis pulls off another flying knee. That's I'll live with that,
Yep. Same here.
Moving on though. Co-main event. 5-round fight, which is surprising, which tells me that it seems like the winner of this will likely face the winner of Manon and Valentina whenever that fight happens. We got Rose Namajunas. She's taking on Erin Blanchfield. Current price, Blanchfield minus 130. Comeback on Namajunas plus 110. What do you think here at Lags? Is Blanchfield a justified fave?
I don't have super strong takes here, but from a guy who bet Erin against Manon in her last fight, I can absolutely see the issues that Rose is going to present to her here with the footwork and just the much better striking, in my opinion. Rose is definitely, as well, in my opinion, improved her defensive grappling. I mean, for sure, Erin can land takedowns here, but I just favor Rose a little bit here. I think she probably could be like a minus 125-ish favorite. I think there's slight value on her, but ultimately I think it's a close fight that probably does go the distance.
Yeah, I agree. I bet Rose for 2 units at plus 117. I mean, maybe it's possible, like I said earlier, Erin's coming off her first loss. It's kind of scary to, fade the hype again,
Right.
But I also think the market's like still overpricing her grappling a bit and underpricing Rose's, to be frank. Erin has landed more than one takedown in a fight, I believe only once in her career in the UFC. She has landed, she couldn't land a takedown against JJ Aldrich, who I believe Chad told me this, as 60% of her opponents have taken JJ Aldrich down, and Erin was unable to do that. I mean, she's a very good grappler when she gets on top. I can't say she is a very good grappler when she gets on top. Like, I'm not going to disrespect that. She's an excellent grappler, but she's a poor wrestler. I do think her ability to get submissions in MMA is being overrated. She's being treated as if she is like this submission ace, which I'm sure she is in a gi. She's a very high level black belt, but in 12 wins, she only has 4 career submissions. It's. Shawty says, "How are you going against East Coast girl, bro? I used to train at the gym that she's out of. Literally, it's like 10 minutes. She grew up like 10 minutes from my house. Yeah, I know. But like, she's very young and still improving. But her wrestling is bad, man. It's legitimately bad. Like, it's all upper body. There's no chain wrestling. There's no wrestling the legs really at all. On the feet, I'll give her this. She's got fucking tenacity. She comes at you. She throws in combinations. She throws volume. She's got great cardio. All of these are really strong assets, especially in WMMA. But she is very, very easy to hit. She takes very bad angles to get to her opponents. You saw that with Manon, who was kind of able to just, that's Manon's game in general, but it was it was easier than usual, for her to kind of just outmaneuver her on the outside and like pick her apart. And so I look at it with Rose, to your point. It's like, Rose has great footwork too. I don't think it's as good as Manon's, to be honest. Like, Manon's footwork is definitely, like, Manon looked like she was minus 300 there.
And she's much more physical too. I mean, just absolutely specimen.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't think, I would be surprised if Rose looked minus 300, but I'd be very surprised at that.
Yeah.
My biggest concern, so with Rose, I think she can give up takedowns here to Aaron, maybe even 2, 3, or 4. The thing is, I feel like people are still pricing Rose's grappling the way they priced it 10 years ago when she got submitted by Carla. I was looking into this. The last 18 takedowns Rose has allowed across like her last 7 or 8 fights, she's allowed 5 minutes of control total across 18 takedowns. Like, she works to get up very, very quickly. She's learned to counter grapple pretty well. I think the assumption that this is going to be easy takedowns here for Aaron into dominant control, I mean, maybe, but like, Aaron's very good on top, but like Weili is very good on top. Carla's very good on top. Hebas is a very high level black belt who took her down 4 times. Cortez isn't bad on top, and none of these women were able to do shit with it. In the striking, we all know Rose is the better striker. The big question is just cardio. Like, can Aaron take over down the stretch of this fight if she gets tired? But first of all, I mean, last fight was in Denver, at altitude. Kind of give her a pass there. She's always kind of had cardio that was borderline. But, I mean, this is a woman who's won late rounds against Weili Zhang and Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I feel like she's like kind of the classic person that like looks tired but never collapses, does a good job of fighting through it. And I think that should suit her kind of fine here. I do think it's going to be a competitive fight. Like, I think Aaron is going to get stronger as this fight goes on. And I think there will likely be a chance to bail on Rose live if it looks like she's slowing down in this fight. But ultimately, I feel... I mean, compare their fights with Manon, Like, Rose outlanded Manon at distance, went to a split decision striking with her. Aaron got outlanded in head strikes by 80 and was not even remotely competitive there. Like, most of her strikes were kind of harmless leg kicks in that fight. I think that's a good proxy for how the stand-up's likely to go here. So, like, I look at it, and I mean, Aaron has a path via grappling, via cardio, via output to winning this fight, no doubt. She's very young. She's getting better. Rose 32. She's probably already peaked. But I can't project Aaron to get like 5, 8, 9, 10 minutes of control in this fight. I can't project. I mean, she could get a sub, but I think it would have to be like a guillotine or like something from guard, something like that. I'd be really surprised if she processed subbed Rose. So, like, I have a trouble projecting her finishing at much of a clip. I actually think Rose is more likely of the two to finish this fight. So with that dynamic, I think Rose in the minus 125 to 135 range makes sense. I think it's a close fight. Aaron's getting better. But ultimately, I'm going to side with, the definitive championship level fighter here, in my opinion, as an underdog. So we'll see how it goes. Moving on, main event, Brandon Moreno, the assassin baby. He's taken on Amir Albazi. Moreno really let me down his last time out as a minus 250 favorite. Had him parlayed with Daniel Zellhuber. Probably shouldn't have done that in retrospect. Aged well, though. The loss has aged well. I'll tell you that much against Brandon Royval. Current price here, Moreno, minus 174. Come back on Albazi, plus 149. I'm going back to the well with Brandon here, though. I bet him at minus 150 to win 2 units. I've seen like people talk about how Albazi's got a grappling path here, and like I'm sure he can get takedowns. I would be, dude. This is not Alessandro Pantoja, man. Like not even close. Like not in the same like stadium as Alessandro Pantoja when it comes to, chain wrestling ability to force grappling exchanges, ability to take back and scramble, and like even in the Pantoja fight, Moreno scrambled fine with Pantoja. He reversed the back takes a couple times. So like I'm very, very, I shouldn't say it can't happen. It could happen, right? It was disconcerting to me how bad Brandon Moreno looked in his last fight. Very, very disconcerting. And that
his
was
last
like
couple fights, really.
I don't agree with that though, man. He looked good against Pantoja, in my opinion.
The Pantoja fight, fine, but what about the Kai fight?
That was an ugly look, but he did finish him. I mean, if we want to bring up the Kai fight, like Kai France outlanded this guy 94-42, and Moreno outlanded Kai both times he's fought him and finished him the second time. So I know some people don't like stats or whatever, but again, it's a good proxy for what you're getting and trying to measure out this fight. I honestly thought Moreno looked really good against Pantoja in that fight. Pantoja just turned out to be a lot better than people have been giving him credit for. Like everybody talks about his cardio, and it turns out, yeah, he gets fucking tired, and the dude forces through like the champion that he is. I think that version of Moreno has basically zero-ish trouble with Albazi. I don't think Albazi's bad or anything. He's obviously on steroids. He's physically like huge for the division. Hits hard, decent jab. Obviously, very, very good jiu-jitsu, decent back takes if he can get you down. But he's very low output. When a pace gets forced on him, he gets tired. He's very easy to outland. He's somewhat easy to outmaneuver. And so, yeah, and this is a big step up for him, in my opinion. Yeah, like he beat Kai, but like, did he beat Kai? I'm not so sure. Yeah. So that's kind of my point. I guess I can imagine Albazi winning a close decision, or if Moreno really is at the cliff, finishing him. My thing is, I feel like with fights like this, we have a guy who's 32 years old who just fought to a split decision with the current champion in a title fight, and everybody's talking about him like his career's over. Now, the fight that he looked awful in, he just went to a split decision with Brandon Royval, a guy who threw 500 strikes at 7,000 feet in that fight, and they went to a split decision. In that split decision with Brandon Royval, he landed far more strikes than Amir Albazi's ever landed in his career in any fight. So I think even the version of Moreno from the Royval fight, I would favor against Albazi. But I also kind of think it's classic case of recency bias. The dude looked really bad his last time out, and now the assumption is, the younger fighter who's getting better, is going to beat the washed guy. Except, who's the younger fighter here? Brandon Moreno. That's it. Who's not coming off neck surgery? Brandon Moreno. Who used to be the champion? Brandon Moreno. Like, I feel like it's...
Hey, John, who's got the custom shorts?
Brandon Moreno. Yeah, A-side. It is. That's the truth here, Look, again, I see the path for Albazi. Maybe Moreno comes out, stays back foot. It gets another low-volume fight where Albazi lands a takedown or two, wins a close decision. But I have a very, very hard time imagining a scenario where Albazi's like, we're like, wow, Albazi should have been like minus 300 in that fight, Whereas I can very, very easily imagine a scenario where we're like, Moreno was aggressive from the jump and just absolutely beat the shit out of him. Like, why didn't we all know this was going to happen? I think all the upsides on the Moreno side, he's the more durable fighter, much more reliable output, championship experience, 5-round experience, one of the best scramblers in all of MMA, which is why I'm pretty skeptical. Even if Albazi gets back takes, I'm not sure he's not going to get reversed here and end up just stuck on bottom with Moreno pounding him on top. So, yeah, I mean, Moreno checks like every box for me here. Maybe he's done. Okay. And he loses a close decision. I'm willing to... Maybe he gets finished. His chin is magically gone. But the guy from 2 fights ago, I'd make minus 350 here. I think this is a huge case of recency bias. I think Moreno's better pace, better cardio, better resume, younger. Give me Brandon Moreno to win 2 units, minus 150. I think he should be like minus 200 here. What do you think?
So the second leg of the parlay is the GTD in this fight.
Ooh,
minus
okay.
200, minus 200. Yep. Yeah, I think this fight goes the distance at a very, very high clip. But no, I agree to your points on the side, though. I think Brandon Moreno is the side here. I think he's got, again, much higher volume, much better cardio, and I don't think Albazi is very, very likely to hold him down in the grappling, and very, very unlikely to finish him. I mean, he's not finished.
I mean, if Albazi holds him down, I'm going to be like, this dude's the best fighter in the division. You know, like that's.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
So, we'll see what happens, but I like the Brandon side here. Yeah, that'll do it for us. We'll be back same time next week, 7 p.m. in either 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not sure if we have a break after next week or not, but we will have our 200th episode. Lags and I will talk. We'll do some kind of a contest giveaway. Maybe we'll have a guest or two on here. We
do not have a break. So we actually have, next week, it's Magny Pratas, and then the week after that's 309 Jones Miocic.
Oh, okay. Magny. Can you believe that's a main event? Honestly. Minus 600 main event. Like riveting stuff. Honestly. That's what gets the people coming back for UFC fight nights.
When was the last time we had like a huge favorite like that as a main event? It's been quite a while.
I mean, I literally... It's got to be like one of the Shevchenko title fights where she was, you know, because she had a few title fights on fight nights where she was like, minus 1,000, like Carmouche or something like that. So, but yeah, boys, that'll do it. We'll be back same time next week, 7 p.m. Eastern. Drop a like, subscribe. If you want to chat with us, hit us up on Twitter. I'm at MMA Fox. Danny is at Danny_Lags. We'll see you guys next week. Peace. God bless. Good luck.